Okay. Hi, everyone. This is Beth Branham from Opportunities Inc. And again, I'm with Brett Gilio from Big Sky Therapeutics Services. And this week, we're going to talk about positive intent. Okay, so what we're going to learn about in this video is we're going to learn about the power of love, which is basically seeing the best in others. And then the skill that we're going to learn is positive intent. And what we're going to learn with that is some ways to reframe, which are kind of the definition on there, which talks about reframing our questions, kind of flipping the script. And along with that, we're going to talk about something called ACT. Okay, so I added this quote on here because I thought it was fitting with this topic. So this quote is actually from Brené Brown. She writes a bunch of different books. And this is a quote actually of her husband, Steve. And Steve said, "I don't know. I really don't. All I know is that my life is better when I assume that people are doing their best, keeps me out of judgment, and lets me focus on what is and not what should or could be." And then she says, "His answer felt like truth to me, not an easy truth, but truth." And this really fits in the sense that, when, say, we're looking at our child's behavior and we're, putting a certain story to that, it can put us into either judgment or helpfulness and problem solving. And that's really what we're going to be talking about today. Okay, so we kind of always go back to the brain states because that's really where this all is playing into. And so our brain state dictates the perception that we're having. And then so perception dictates our intent, and then our intent will dictate the actions that we're going to carry out. So when we're in our survival state, we're really viewing conflict as threatening and bad, and that it must be punished. So that's not putting us in a very good state to problem solve anything. Then when we get up into our emotional state, we find that conflict is irritating, upsetting, and we must stop it, put an end to it. And where we're wanting to get to, and where this skill plays into, is we want to get to our executive state. We want to view conflict as a call for help, and we want to use it as an opportunity to teach. And we can solve our problems by building new skills, first in ourselves, and then building those skills in our children. Okay, so what we offer to others, we strengthen in ourselves. And I think that's just a good way to look at this. So an example is, think back to a time in your life when you lashed out at a loved one. So was your deepest desire at that moment to make things worse? To have them feel less than, whole, or simply get personal relief from your own emotions? So if we think about that, children experience those same kinds of flood of emotions. So our job as the adults and as their parents is to remain calm enough to see the best in them and to help them build skills and to really see kind of what's behind that behavior and what they're asking for help with. What skill are they lacking that we can build up to help them problem solve and try a different way. So the power of love that we're talking about today requires us to use all the tools that we've learned up until this point. There's a reason that positive intent is later. It's because we have to build up all those other skills first to get to this place. And managing our triggers, like we've talked about in the past weeks, and remaining calm is going to be the best, but it's not the easiest thing to do.
So one of the when we're talking about positive intent, it's shifting our view or reframing our view or thoughts or beliefs about a behavior into a more positive, helpful manner. So it often doesn't mean that we have to ignore or not work on behaviors. It just means that if we can reframe it, it leads us into problem solving. Because being stuck, when we see things in a negative way, we get stuck, and we get stuck on the behavior and what's happened to us instead of trying to solve the problem and how we're going to teach and work with kids. So here's just an example or a couple examples of negative tent. So, like we might see a kid hurting another kid or pushing a kid or shoving them down or taking their toys, and we'll be like, man, that kid's just mean. And if we reframe it and we think about it differently, is behavior communicates and is telling us something. And so a kid who's usually pushing, shoving, and taking typically needs social skills. He needs help. He needs somebody to teach him how to be a good friend and how to get his needs met and how to share it and how to take turns. It's kind of something you see in young children that, when they're right about between 2 and 4 is they're starting to learn to share, and they'll push and they'll take and they'll shove, and they're not trying to be mean. They're cueing us as adults into we have to help them learn the skills. So that second example, a kid shoves another kid's. Another kid, the positive intent was, well, maybe the kid wanted something. Maybe he wanted the kid to go move away from him. Maybe the kid took the toy in the past and he's trying to communicate and say, I need space. And so what we'll try and do with that is we're going to try and teach kids like that we're going to talk about an ACT, which is acknowledge, clarify, and take time to practice. And you're going to talk to kids about what you wanted, you were hoping for. Next time you want Johnny to move away, say, move, please. If they're little, they're going to use a few words. If they're older, you can say, move away, please, I need space. Something that simple. So we're going to talk about ACT and kind of walk through a couple examples of this. This is a difficult skill in the sense that it's hard to remember in the moment. And so one of the things to do, like we've talked about before, is the need to write down events and then train yourself to use these new skills. And so what ACT is really it's the first step is you're going to acknowledge what the person, individual, or child wanted. The second part is you're going to clarify. The C part is you're going to clarify the skill. So if a kid is pushing and shoving or grabbing a toy from a peer, you're going to say, when you want a toy from a peer or from a friend, say, can I play with a sword, please? And then you're going to take time to practice. You're going to practice it right then in the moment, right after the event happened, so the child learns and can see how it's helpful. And I'll talk a little bit more because I got some better examples for that. So here's kind of what a handout looks like. If you were in class, we'd hand this out to you. And it just really walks through the steps of what ACT is. And then at the very top, underneath ACT, it gives you the sentence structure. Acknowledge what the child's desires. You'd say you wanted blank. Clarify the skill, which is when you want blank, say or do blank, and then take time to practice. And then in the gray area there, it talks about really what you do is you write down what the child's inappropriate or hurtful behavior was, because it gives us a framework from which to operate from. Then we'll say, well, what's our hurtful view? What's the view that I have about this kid that's hurtful? What's the reframing or the helpful view I can have about this kid that will help me teach the skills? And then just below that, it uses the ACT framework to just reteach the skill. So kind of like in this example, it says the inappropriate behavior is my child sometimes ignores me when I tell him or her to do something, right? And that happens to all of us. And so I hear often, it's like he's being disrespectful. He doesn't care. He doesn't want to listen. He doesn't care what I say. He doesn't care about me. Those can be hurtful views. So reframing of that for a more helpful view, because we can't do much about hurtful views, but we can do something for reframing it and saying, well, sometimes he has a hard time stopping. He's having a fun time and could use my help stopping. And how we reframe that into the ACT framework is to say, first, you're going to acknowledge the child's desires. Then you'll clarify the skill. Then you'll take time to practice. So you'll say, acknowledge. You'll say, you wanted to keep playing. Put the ball in the bin and grab your backpack. let's do it together for practice. And then you're going to practice with the kid. Hey, let's go put this away together. We're going to put it in your backpack. And then you can say, you did it. You know, like you're gonna acknowledge that they followed through and follow the directions, that they're able to do that. Now that one's a little bit easier in the sense, but a lot of parents, ADHD is one of the common challenges. And so I kind of took an example of that. And so here's just an example and walk through this, which is the child's inappropriate hurtful behavior will not stop running around the house when asked and ignores me. And so the hurtful view is saying, he does not want to listen to him. Most of the time, that's not really true. Kids, I don't think like, oh, I don't want to listen to you. I think they're just busy, they're engaged, and it's hard for them to transition. So a more helpful view would be he's having a very hard time transitioning hurt behavior, like running or playing or whatever, and needs help. Think about kids who won't stop watching video or get off their video games. It's really, really hard. And for some kids, it's even harder. And another helpful view is he's overly excited and is struggling to slow down. So to make that transition to slow down, that's more of a helpful view. So what can I do? Well, I can acknowledge the child's desire. So clearly I can say, you wanted to keep running to get your energy out. And because this is a kid that I work with. And I know that he likes to run, he likes to get his energy out, and it's really hard for him to stop. And so then I can clarify the skills and I can teach him to say, hey, I'm having a hard time stopping, or I really want to keep going. Can I have 5 more minutes? And the function of those two different phrases is one, the first one, I'm having a hard time stopping, is saying, I need your help. Like, this is really, really hard for me. So we can put some skills into place to help them transition, a hug, maybe a transition activity, things like that. Or sometimes kids just want to keep going and they just need a little bit more time to slow down. And if we can teach them to ask instead of ignore, if we can teach them to ask and use their words and say, can I have 5 more minutes? And let's say you don't have 5 more minutes. You could say, you can have 2 more minutes. And then you'll say, let's practice. And then you'll say, Johnny, hey, it's time to stop running around the house. Let's come sit down. And then you can say, Johnny, I would like you to say, Mom or Dad, I really want to keep going. Can I have 5 more minutes? And then the dad can say, yes, thanks for using your words. You can have 3 more minutes. And then I'll come get you. And you just practice right away that skill for them to use. So, what if the kid says, no, I don't want 3 minutes, I want 5 minutes? I might reinforce that and say, you know what, I appreciate that you used your words. You did it, you used your words. You can have 5 more minutes. And then when 5 minutes comes, we're going to approach the child. And of course, in the book, there's lots of things, or in the trainings we've done, there's lots of things about consequences following through, those things to help kids slow down. And in this case, for kids with ADHD, I might hug them, ask them for a hug, a high five, start talking about the next thing they're going to do. Here's another example of inappropriate, hurtful behavior, and this happens a lot, which is, a child hits a brother or takes a toy or takes a toy away from him. That happens a lot. People will say, well, he's just mean. He doesn't want to share. He doesn't want to share. He just wants all his brother's toys. And that's often not the case. What it is kids just lack the skill to share and take turns and to tolerate other people playing with their toys. And that's a skill that has to be taught. So a helpful view is he wants to play with the toys his brother has. He has not learned how to ask or take turns or wait. So guess what? We got to teach some skills. So with the acknowledge framework, we're going to say, you wanted the toy sword your brother was playing with. We're going to clarify what the skill we want them to use. When you want a toy, when you want a toy someone else has, you can say, can I please play with the sword? And in this scenario, there's 2 options here that are usually going to happen. One is the kid's going to say no, or the kid might say yes. Now we're just practicing here. So we might practice with us, and I might have the kid who took the toy away say, okay, let's practice. And the kid say, can I please play with the sword? And I can say, yes, here you go. And I can practice giving the sword to them, say, good job. Look, you did it. You used your words, and I'm willing to share. But then you can also practice the other option, which is most likely going to happen, is somebody else saying no. And so you would say, hey, let's practice. Johnny, I want you to say, could I please play with the sword? Could I please play with the sword? And the kid says, no, I want to play with it. Then I'll say, look, you did it. You asked if you could play with it. How about Johnny can have the sword in 5 minutes? And that way, the other kid also learns to share because Johnny's using his words, and there's typically no reason why kids could not share. If there is a reason, we'd find another toy or activity for the kid to play with that's having the hard time. But we just want to practice and practice, and you may practice 2 or 3 times, because just like any skill, like walking, talking, riding a bike, learning to drive a car, or a new job, you don't learn that skill with one practice session. It takes many, many, many times to be proficient at it. So sometimes just writing it out this way can be very, very helpful in helping parents know how to apply the ACT framework to help with positive intent, reframing what kids are attempting to do, because most often it's always related to that they don't have the skill. It's not a functional skill for them. It's not something that comes natural for them.
All right. I don't have anything else to add, but as we talked about before, if you have any questions, you can for sure leave a comment on this video, and then we can answer your questions on our next video, or if there's certain topics that you're interested in, you can put those there. In our next video, we're going to talk about consequences.